call to order the City of Colwood Planning and Land Use Committee meeting for Monday, January 6, 2025. First time I get to say that. We have a full panel here this evening with the exception of Katrina Murray, who unfortunately sends her regrets. First, before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge with respect that we're meeting on the traditional territory of the Lekwungen speaking peoples, and we're honored to have the opportunity to build strong working relationships with the people of the Songhees and the Kasepsum nations. Just looking for a motion to approve the agenda for this evening. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Looking for another motion, item 3 for adoption of the minutes from December 2nd, 2024. Okay, Katrina on that one. Thank you. Sorry, do we need to vote? We will. Okay. All those in favor? Okay. Okay, excellent. All right. Moving on then, that is approved. We'll go to item 4, public participation. I don't believe there's anyone online unless Yasmin wants to speak up. Nobody in the audience. So we'll move to the principal matter this evening. Item 5, new business. Desiree is here to give a presentation on the OCP amendment to the Incorporation of Gateway and Triangle Lands Vision and Action Plan. Thank you, Desiree.
Thank you, Councillor Ward, and good evening, committee members. So I'm here tonight to seek a recommendation from the Planning and Land Use Committee on the incorporation of the Gateway and Triangle Lands Vision and Action Plan into the OCP. Just to give you a little bit of background, in November 2021, Council embarked on a visioning process specific to the Gateway and Triangle Lands, which is the area of lands located at the main entrance of Colwood into the city. It's represents a gateway into the city and runs to the intersection of Souk and Goldstream. Between the fall of 2021 and spring of 2022, the project team worked closely with landowners, staff, council, and other stakeholders to explore land use concept and develop a draft vision and action plan, which was endorsed by council in June 2022. From then on, endorsed for purposes of conducting public consultation. So then between the summer of 2022 and spring 2023, staff conducted consultation and sought feedback on the draft plan. Concerns raised during this period were incorporated into the next draft. And finally, in May 2023, the final plan was endorsed by council, and council directed staff to incorporate this plan into the next OCP amendment. They just had one minor change, which was to remove the West Shore Parks and Recreation area from the scope of the plan. The proposed bylaw that's before you tonight will incorporate this final council endorsed Gateway Triangle Action Plan into the OCP. Specifically, it will include the plan as an appendix to the OCP, as well as update the language within the Colwood Corners and the Mixed Use Employment Center land use designations to align with the area plan. So this includes supporting heights up to 25 stories, as well as increased densities. You will note that the maximum floor area ratio has not yet been defined. This is being defined under the next scope of work, which will result in a new zone for the area in alignment with the plan. However, in the meantime, staff are seeking a recommendation to move forward with at least incorporating the plan into the OCP. I'm here if you have any questions at this time, and thank you.
Great, thank you, Desiree. Turn to the committee, see if there's any questions. Let's see any. Desiree, just a question, and excuse my naivete on it. I know prior to the break, I was having a chat with our former CAO, and he referenced the northwest corner of the Gateway and Triangle Lands and sort of single family residential, kind of offshoots from Whale Road and Goldstream there. And that, it's an area that maybe isn't as aligned with the rest of the Gateway Triangle area in terms of what we might like to see. But because it's kind of lumped in, there's the possibility we'd be going into a single family home neighborhood and saying, okay, we want to build a 35-story tower, that kind of thing. Has there been consideration of that? And is that something that we move forward here? There's still an avenue to explore changes on that, or?
Thank you for the question. I guess there's certainly still opportunities to explore that within the next phase of the project. So the zone will include um, distinct sub areas potentially within the Gateway and Triangle End. So currently, this is just to endorse the plan so that when staff are ready to bring forward a blanket zone for the entire area, it will be supported by policy and by the OCP. So that door hasn't closed yet and can certainly be discussed with council in the future.
Okay, great. Thank you. That answers my question. Um, if there's no further questions, then I would see if anyone wants to make a motion. Oh, we have another question here. Just a moment. Go ahead, Kathleen.
Just for context, and I did go back to the OCP, the current one that was voted on September 2022, just to get some frame of reference in terms of this particular proposed amendment. And I'm wondering if either you, Desiree, or I guess Mr. Ward, you wouldn't have been involved necessarily in the rationale behind this increased height proposal, but for sure, Mr. Jensen, you were. So sorry to put either of you on the hot seat, but I'm just kind of feeling that I'm missing a lot of context. I have definitely read all of the material straight through, but the question that comes to mind from my perspective is in 2022, we voted on an OCP which had it limited at 15 stories. What changed? Is what I really, I mean, I know that's a broad question, but I'm kind of just here as a newcomer. I have sort of followed the news and I've never been able to get a satisfactory answer as to why, what's in my view a very, very large variance. What was the rationale behind it? And again, I have seen all the material, so it would be kind of, is there anything more that anybody can tell me to help me with that?
Maybe I saw Ian moving over there, so we'll hear from Ian Borhill on
You're in
this
the
one.
hot seat.
Thanks, Desiree. Through the chair to Member Donnie's question. That's a great question. You know, the Fish Community Plan had set an expectation in 2018 going back that we would actually reduce expectations for height. There was concerns about some tower projects that weren't successful, and there was a sort of a sore thumb effect that was a concern. As part of the outreach to the community and to specifically the owners of the properties located in the study area, we found that the 12-story height maximum was a real impediment to them moving forward, largely because of the costs associated with building that type of building. Really, the market is looking at 6-story wood frame as a sweet spot for this type of area. And if we're going to go concrete, they're really saying, you got to go up 20 stories. So that was difficult for us to really absorb into the plan, because once we explained to one property owner, sure, 20 stories makes sense for your property. Of course, a lot of the others were saying us too, please. So I don't have the plan right in front of me, but there's a page that actually shows the different suggested building heights, what we think would be ideal from a planning perspective, but at the same time, based on the merits of the proposal, up to 25 stories. So we've got a specific set of criteria that we would apply to determine what was the appropriate height in a case-by-case situation.
Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong, anyone. This is not a case-by-case scenario. In other words, we're setting a floor, so to speak, in terms of how many floors are acceptable without having to come back to council or to the city. Right. So if we agree to 25 floors, that's it. Any developer, provided they don't have any other compliance issues, will automatically be able to build a 25-story building. Is that correct?
Oh, through the chair. Thank you for that question. No, there's a process that involves the application of a set of criteria, as I said, that's specified in the Gateway Plan. So any project would be beholden to a process that saw those implemented through a development permit application. We are tracking towards a situation where the city will be, based on recent provincial legislation, aligning our zoning with the Fish Community Plan. So as Desiree mentioned, there's going to be likely a series of subzones that are applied through that process. And they will mirror the criteria that are within this plan and what we expect to be part of the OCP. So there would be an iterative process when applications are made to apply that criteria and determine what's appropriate.
Okay. Speaking of legislation, I did want to know, and again, maybe putting people on the spot, in terms of our legislative requirements, density-wise, where are we in terms of the target? And does this particular amendment assist with the target, or are we okay without making the amendment?
I'll let Ian speak to that, but you know, this does play into it. I think we're on track with our targets, and I'm sure Mr. Boreal can speak to the numbers. What's unique about this particular area, though, is that it's a transit zone, you know, and it's the only one designated as such in Colwood at this point. So that has a lot of other ramifications that go along with it. But maybe Mr. Boreal, you can speak to how it fits into the puzzle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, so this designation would exceed the provincial minimums for this transit area. The most important probably aspect for the developability of this site and the success of this plan are the cost savings that developers would see through we've lost our ability to place minimum parking requirements on this area. That, as I said, is seen as a good thing relative to the viability of this plan based on what we heard from the property owner group. The accessibility to transit, the accessibility to the Galvin Goose Regional Trail are things that we think will really support pedestrian-oriented development.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Jansen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Ian. And I did make a note of that. Well, the fellow member was speaking, and perhaps Ian or Desiree, you touched on it, but can we hammer home where this fits in with Bill C-44 and our transit growth area, and whether we're fully compliant in that zone? Do these changes allow for us? I mean, does this allow for the development in that transit growth area pursuant to Bill C-44 as expected?
Yes, through the chair. Thank you for that question, Councillor Jansen. This very much complies with the recent changes to both. So it was Bill 44, 46, 47. We actually delayed this process to incorporate the gateway plan into the OCP so that we could make those changes to the parking bylaw and the OCP and zoning. So if you may recall, I think it was sort of just before the summer that we brought that forward.
That's perfect. Thank you. And
Sorry, can I interject, Councillor Jansen? I think Yasmin may want to speak to your question there. She's raised her hand just after you spoke. So, Yasmin, did you want to address something specific there?
Yes, my apologies. I'm unable to be there in person. I am sick with a cold, so I rather spare you all the germs. I just maybe wanted to add additional background, taking us back all the way to 2020. I guess the reason that council embarked in this revisioning of the area was because we received an application that maybe called into question the land use designation for the mixed use employment center, what the official community plan contained, and what council maybe understood that the mixed use employment center was about. So we received an application for 1648 Island Highway. So currently it sits empty, but it was the Galaxy Motors site. And so for that application, we had very animated debates around the council table about whether the proposal of kind of light industrial at a small scale actually met the intent of the mixed use employment center. And through that conversation, it evolved that council didn't think that's what this gateway to Colwood or the entrance of Colwood would be best served by industrial lands located in a prime spot for transportation, be it bus, galloping goose, and being on a major arterial road. So basically, it was prompted by an application that really made us question whether the existing 15 stories and the conception of the entire Souk Road corridor from kind of the border of View Royal to Well Road and beyond, whether that made sense. And it was about exploring options to create a proper gateway or downtown and how to better redefine it. So that's kind of how it all started. So yes, it started, it seems like a big variance, but I think it was a process of exploration of many years by now, about sitting a little bit uneasy with what the original document called for in the first place. I hope that adds a little bit more context.
Great, thank you, Desmond. I'll go back to Councillor Jansen, who had the floor. Marcy, are you able to activate his mic? He's not showing up on my list here. Or reactivate his mic. There you go, sir.
Thank you, Tiffany. And that was about it. And I think Councillor Ward did touch on it. Can you speak about, and to be fair, the plan, I didn't go back and look at the original plan once again, but I do have some familiarity with it. But can you speak, Ian or Desiree, about the 200 meter, 400 meter zones and how that impacts the lands, specifically as we go up the hill? And I think it fits with Councillor Ward's thinking, like we do run into some single family homes at the top, and what's the current zoning? I guess my thinking is, have we looked at this in as far as transitions as we go up the hill, and what does that look like sort of globally?
Thank you, Councillor Jansen, and through the chair. So the new zone that we're working on will, as I mentioned, include several different precincts, and one of those areas will be the tier 4 and tier 5 of the TOA. So we'll be defining, making sure that the new zone will align with not only the Gateway Action Plan, which goes above and beyond those TOA requirements, but also aligns with provincial legislation. So all those items will be explored further, but they're not quite defined yet. But we hope to bring that back to Planning and Land Use Committee and Council. We're just on hold with this project and developing the zone until we've explored the public realm improvement requirements, as well as the requirements around transportation upgrades and those items. But for now, this is just a bylaw to incorporate the plan into the OCP.
So really all we're trying to achieve here is to embed the work that's already been done into the official community plan, and yet there's a bunch more to wrap around afterwards. Is that the correct read?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, thank you. I'll yield. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Good, I've got you here. There you go.
The one observation of the amendment proposed that really piqued my interest was some clear language around the strategies for obtaining success, including incentivizing tax exemptions for developers. I admit my tenure on the committee is very short, nor is my knowledge on how we apply tax exemption to building permits to be fulsome, but I'm really curious as to what sort of reasoning or motivators we use to bring that into the OCP as a strategy for success, as well as what sort of oversight or ruling or administration towards what extent of exemption we provide. I'd like to understand a bit more in that space.
Thank you for that question, and through the chair. Yeah, so tax exemptions are a tricky and controversial issue. So within the study area, the city did grant a tax exemption to one of the properties there already. That was to entice what the council today thought was a very important use that was missing in call. That was that being the hotel on Whale Road. So the process to create a tax exemption it revolves around legislation that allows us to create a revitalization area bylaw. And then that gives council the ability to essentially incentivize types of development they see as revitalization to an area. As I said, there's a lot of controversy around those decisions. I expect that if the city was going to contemplate that in the future, they would take very careful consideration of potential impacts.
Does it take some form of like variance approval in order to obtain it, or would that just be part of a building permit application that goes through the city and meets bylaw and therefore would be approved without, you know, any you know, open discourse?
Thank you for that follow-up and through the chair. Absolutely not. There's the legislation actually states that council has to go through a specific process to set up a bylaw to create the revitalization bylaw. So there would be a public process and 4 readings of the bylaw that go through the normal steps involving likely a community recommendation and public opportunity to comment.
But that would be for the bylaw, but once in effect, anything that adheres to it would go through clear?
I can't say, you know, hypothetically how that would necessarily work. I know with our experience with the Holiday Inn Express, that was a consideration that needed to look at the impacts to the overall revenue of the city. So it really came down to specifics of that property. I expect council would be looking for the same type of detail if contemplating this in the future, whether they be estimates of future tax revenues on a prospective basis or for a specific property.
Thank you. The reason why it comes up for myself is I see Colwood having such a massive opportunity for the commercialization of the city, and the lack of commercial that has been present, while that's increasing at a substantial rate. I want to see that commercial base really take off. So I really look forward to that actual area be developed in the way it is, and hopefully we can you know, achieve the fruits of the labor of that area. Thank you.
Thank you, see Mr. Jansen. I'll go to you for a second time here.
It was just a quick response to Member Perry. Absolutely, any deferral or adjustment to taxes and tax rolls is a decision of council and gets publicly debated for sure. And we had situations in the previous term where there were some asks and they were debated extensively. And in fact, the one that was mentioned by Mr. Borhill is the only example in this community. And I would suggest that the will of the previous council, and it would be my inclination if anything came forward, there's other ways to incentivize that through like the bonus densities and what have you, which are far more, I think, acceptable in the eyes of the community when we're all paying increased taxes. So it is something that the previous council was sensitive to, and I'm sure our current council would be sensitive to that as well, unless it really filled a niche that we were looking for. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if we don't have any other questions, I'd look for a motion, ideally supporting the staff recommendation, but open to any. Do I see a motion? Councillor Jansen, you're moving the staff recommendation? Excellent. All those in favor? It's 4. Thank you. So that moves forward. With that, I just seek a motion to adjourn. Mr. Perry has made that motion. All those in favor? Approved. Thank you very much. Appreciate everybody and staff. Happy New Year. Thank you. Take care.